So we're still back at the Manchester Social Enterprise Alliance session on legal structures and business planning. We've moved into that afternoon session, as I was just saying, and we're going to be having a bit of a debate or a bit of a conversation around legal structures and governance. Two things go hand in hand, but are different things. And then Adrian's going to do his special performance act afterwards. So all about this topic. So question number one, and we'll take questions from everybody as well, is Tom meant to be here, Chairman, but just had to nip away.
I can pretend to be Tom.
Yeah, well, no, we'll discuss in the round. Do you recommend any particular legal structures for social entrepreneurs? Is the opening question. So, are there any recommended legal structures for social entrepreneurs? Discuss.
You want to go first?
Well,
because I'm doing the workshop-y thing, so I've got all the answers
all there.
about to be released.
We asked this question on purpose because there are no recommended. There's no set ones. There's a handful, and I think there's about 17 or so, aren't there? Really. So basically, there are routes that social entrepreneurs can take, and as we've been hearing from stories in the room, a social entrepreneur can be a sole trader. They can be just a one man or one woman or one person band giving something a go. And because they've had to start trading, they've started to earn a living, they're hitting a threshold of about £1,000 turnover, or they've been running it for a period of time. It's time to tell the tax man. So that's sort of social entrepreneur type number one, just get started. Another social entrepreneur might not be trading, and that they're volunteering and they're testing something out and they're piloting. And again, they're still on their own, but they're kind of volunteering within their own time, within their own project. It's almost project-led. There are other people who get to the point where they know they need to evolve into something, either because they need help or because no person is an island that can create this change in this big vision. So very rare that social enterprises and social entrepreneurs work alone, because you just can't achieve the social change you're trying to create. So because they're growing, they end up invariably becoming constituted group or an unincorporated association, whether they've got the bit of paper that says they are or not. In legal terms, a group working together would be an unincorporated association, if nothing else, working in that community-led, sort of volunteer-led way initially, and then things sort of evolve from there. And so, who's hands up if you're?
So, like I said, there's another route as well that people come into this, which is they're employed in the NHS or local council.
Yeah.
Because for the last kind of 10, 20 years, we've had government introducing policy and legislation that says if you work in the public sector and you think your service could work better if it was free of the shackles of government bureaucracy, but let's externalize it, let's spin it out into a public sector mutual or a social enterprise. Now, that is another route, but that comes with a different set of forces and influences, because then there's legislators, there's governments, there's public sector bodies saying, actually, we have criteria you need to fulfill in terms of the legal forms of the docs, which are more restrictive and prescriptive, whereas the most frequent routes we find, as Nickala shared, you have a lot more flexibility to explore this and to work it out on your terms and with your community as well. And that's the other part of this. What's the relationship that you want the enterprise to have with the community?
Totally.
So, can I just interject there? Yeah. So, exactly what you're saying there is the me going for certain funding, because I've not wanted that red tape over what I'm doing. Do you know?
Yeah. I don't think there's a.
Sorry.
So they're finding the way.
What's the ways around that then? Like, how do you get to that level without still having freedom to not be bound?
Well, the pragmatic workaround is don't apply for the grants, get someone else to apply for them, and you partner with that group to deliver that activity. So, for example, Thomas has just come back in, so just as a reward for him being caught up in being delayed coming back, let's say Macc, which is a respectable face to many funding bodies and commissioners, go to them and say, we've got a great idea for a new project or service. Okay, they know how to write the bids, they've got the systems in place to handle the application, the money, the reporting, the administration. And then they say, you know what, we need someone to help us deliver it. Why don't you help us? As far as the funder or the commissioner is concerned, your relationship with Macc is immaterial. Okay? So, but then it's your relationship with Macc that says Macc are the purse holders now. So you need to keep in with Thomas, buy him nice cakes, nice coffee, cappuccinos, anything else. Anyway. And then Macc will pay you from that funding to deliver the activity.
And so that's the way, not.
That's the workaround.
And you know, an example of that would be like Emma, who's here. You know, it's part of our pop-up spa and retreat sort of group. So Emma's not yet set up. There's other therapists like Gloria and Sophia who are up in Harper Hay delivering a pop-up spa for a bunch of mums today. It's Flourish or Pop-Up Spa who organise and sort of the stuff. And they've partnered with us. And in time, they might be ready to set up their own affair. But sometimes people are busy, they've got life stuff going on. It's not in their nature to kind of be that organised or whatever it might be. So what Adrian's just described happens all the time.
So is that then a good way of kind of like building credibility without having a responsibility, if you like?
Yeah.
To some degree, yeah. The challenge you've got with that though, the challenge you have with that is it's out of your hands. You have no control.
Yeah.
And so it swings and roundabouts. So they're relying on me to find money to be able to keep them earning, if you know what I mean. Not solely, you know, they all do their own things, but I've only got so much time that I can commit on that.
Right.
Because like Tom, only so much time he could commit on a new program or project because he's got all these other things, and it's juggling their priorities, and it's juggling will the commissioner say yes or no, and will the right pot of money come about. So if you are
let's say the simple that she got all the connection, for example, and know how to move around. I don't know that.
Yeah.
But she can count on me because I can cover her.
Yeah.
To go to do the service.
be reliable and do it.
Can you be sorry?
So I'm just trying to formulate my thought while I'm talking. So in some ways, the disadvantage, if you like, in a way, is that, and then not in a bad way, but at the mercy of when
you're at the mercy of them. You're not developing your own track record, and if you someday want to become your own social enterprise thing, you're starting from scratch really with your own bank account, track record, and stuff. So it's just you know, there's reasons for why you take the leap and decide today I'm becoming my own constituted group. Today I'm becoming a company limited by guarantee, you know, or with or without KIC status, with or without charitable status, or I'm becoming a co-op or something.
So is that more like when sorry, I'm going to shut up. Is that good in terms of like when you're cutting your teeth in business?
Certainly, acting as a sole trader, running a voluntary pilot, partnering with somebody else, or setting up a constituted group. In my view, in this question, you know, do you recommend any structures? Those are all good structures at the start, depending on what works for you, to cut your teeth, to test yourself. Although there is no recommended legal structure for social entrepreneurs, I will regularly tell people to run our programmes. Why don't you set up a constituted group to test yourself, you road test who you might want your future directors or trustees or whoever to be, and you work out what you're doing, and you see, can we get funding? Because constituted groups can do that, and it's a nice, safe-ish, limited strings attached way of doing it. There are other things, you know, you have to have appropriate insurance, you know, it's not got limited liability. So the companies have. But there are, but in terms of getting tested, giving something a go, not having to pay £700 plus for the company accounts, not having to report to the Companies House or the Charities Commission, it's a good enough, safe enough way to get started. But I know there are people in this room who are kind of, you know, beyond that and running their own company. So, you know, we'll get into that.
I want to say, can you be a CIC and do this in parallel as well as do like a partnership?
So
this is
community interest companies, they partner with people, they partner with other CICs, they partner with the private and public sector. You manage spare chair there. It has been a bit of a tight squeeze, as you'll see, Katie, we're packed out. Like, Katie came to one of our events with Monday, and it's nice and small, nice and calm. You want to go and get a bit of space, go for it. So
there's nothing stopping from actually set up my own CIC.
Yeah.
So if I find someone who's doing a product something, but they don't have the know-how and resources, then I can partner with them. And so
People set up partnerships for all sorts of reasons. Sometimes it's a strength in numbers partnership. Sometimes it's some like mutual knowledge. Sometimes it's to cover a big enough area or whatever it might be. Sometimes it's somebody's got the reputation. Certainly for some funded, where we've had to do this, some larger scale funding, unless you've got a turnover of 500,000, they won't touch you anyway. So you have to form this kind of conglomeration or alliance or consortium to be able to work together to deliver the thing, whether it's fund or contract or something else. So lots of options depending on what size you're at. But there's never anything. It's to do with the scale, if I'm honest. It's to do with scale and reputation, and nobody's going to fund you to manage £1 million project if you've never managed £10,000, or if you've not like an admin work starters. So there's reasons why, but it is barrier, it's strange. Anyway, that's another topic for another day. It's a headache. There'll be people in this room who get that. So I won't ask that if it needs to, but maybe between us, because I know Adrian and I work with lots of people and help lots of them set up social ventures. Maybe we'll perhaps share a couple of examples of where people have made their legal structures work well for them, and perhaps where we've had to have them change their structure and why. So I've chatted a lot.
Okay, I'll give you 3 examples. It's always good to do certain 3s. Okay, it's like big historical, socio-economic things. 3's a major number.
269.
In my head now, I'm doing the kind of calculation. So I worked with an existing community interest company one time, and they work around the field of disability and inclusion. Okay, so I'm going to be careful how I can describe these things. So, protect the guilty or innocent. So they were originally set up as a community interest company. That's what it was, and their business had grown quite a bit. And they were starting to get interest from all over the country and from newer and bigger customers to what they did. And as part of that, they said we need to redevelop the way that we work internally, the relationships we have internally with our people, our staff. We want to change that structure. We want to put profit-related things in place as well, in terms of because we've had conversations about sharing risk between ourselves and other things. And what they designed, though, and what they wanted to enact, they couldn't do as a community interest company. So the community interest company form stopped them from being able to work in the way that they wanted to and needed. Okay, so they had to change that form. They changed to a company limited by guarantee. Okay. Not a company limited by guarantee. Okay. So we'll go through the list of these in the world. Okay. So they changed into a different legal form, which gave them more flexibility to design those structures so they could support directors, management committee, staff, volunteers in the ways that they wanted to in terms of the financial support for them as well.
Rather than being governed by the KIC regulator that might have special rules, and most KICs are either a company limited by guarantee or a company limited by share, so they are those things anyway. KIC is a status and charity is a status usually that you tack on to these other things, give and take.
Okay, so yeah, but we'll kind of unpick it a bit afterwards. So that was number 1. So they started off in terms of a cautionary tale about KICs. The other one is the group.
But no, they're not for everybody.
The other one is about a group who had to become a KIC because of a key relationship. So George was showing this morning the business model canvas, and one of the big pillars on side are partnerships. Those critical audiences that you need to say, we recognise you. We think you're legit. We can work with you. So this is a company that was setting up to provide for business services, so business to business services. And what they said was, we want to kind of set this up. So every business that uses our service, the profit that we make from that activity will go back to their community. Okay, so it was a highly regulated service, lots of rules, that, a bit like energy, government says what you have to be charged. Whether it costs anywhere near that or not, it doesn't matter.
So, like when you say went back to the community, what does that look like?
Okay, so for example, let's talk about that. So I'm the enterprise in the middle, okay? You are a group of other businesses in Wigan. You're a group of businesses in Birmingham. You're a group of businesses in Bristol. Okay, so because of how this business works and how it's regulated, I have to charge you all a certain amount of money for the service. Okay? Now, what it costs me to do that is quite a lot less. So there's quite a lot of profit being made. And I'm not saying this up to the money. So all of you in Birmingham, for example, all the profit, because I'm tracking through the management records, all the profit that we've made should go back to good causes in Birmingham. Or they don't in Bristol, your money as well, okay? So that was their vision. Nice idea, okay? Now, in order to kind of, a big part of their business model, back to the business plan strategy, was said to disperse, to put that money back out in those communities, to do it in a way that's equitable, so fair, and is least hassle. We will partner with the community foundations. Okay? Make sense? That seems very reasonable? Okay, now, the community foundations, though, in general, if you have a big private business and you come along, you go, we're going to give you some money. They go, great, thank you, Ashton. This was a very different relationship that they were being offered. And a lot of the community foundations said, we're a bit suspicious. This looks a bit, So the group said, what if we become a kick? Because the kick is the most highly regulated of all the legal forms. Okay? The kick regulator has the power to kick directors out if they think directors aren't doing things properly. Okay? So with the kick form, they're able to go to the community foundations and go, look, we are going to pick this legal form to show you we have to be whiter than white. Look at what the regulator can do to us. The kick regulator's powers go beyond the FCA, who regulate banks. Okay? So what they can do is really extensive. So that gave the community foundations the assurance they needed to partner with the social enterprise. So it was kind of a branding piece as well that worked really well. So that choice of legal form worked really well there. And the third option to work out with, and this is one based here in Greater Manchester, and they set up a group structure. So there's an existing private business, okay, and they said, okay, we're doing some really great stuff on this. And we need to protect that. That's our ongoing thing. But we've seen this opportunity to start doing apprenticeships and training and development for young kids who've fallen out of the system, NEETs, ex-offenders, people leaving care, ex-care, and so on. And we're giving them training placements, and it's working really well. But we could do so much more. We could really expand this up. But if we expand it up, it's going to compromise the core business. So how do we expand it up in a way that allows it to flourish, to grow, allows us to keep a relationship with the original business, but kind of gives us the best of both worlds? So they set up a separate social enterprise as a charitable body, okay? And then there's this group structure that says that the private business is now legally owned into this holding company, and then this social enterprise as well also has a connection back into this top company too. Then this top company says, you know, essentially we are like trustees, we're the guardians. We're going to make sure that the balance is kept between how this social enterprise can prosper and get going through its links with the original business. The original business isn't compromised, it can keep trading, it can be sustainable, keep providing opportunities, but then that catalyzes, that creates more interest and talk to link that social enterprise into other stuff in the future. So they both get the ability to trade as they need to. They're both protected in terms of their purposes, but there's something that gives them a way to get the most of working together that goes beyond the partnership.
So in terms of hierarchy, does the private company reporting to CIC or
no? There's a CIC at the top. So the private company reports to CIC, and then the new social enterprise also reports to CIC. And it gives it that option to grow in terms of scaling in the future as well. So this idea of how do you scale the impact of what you're doing? So they'll say this model will allow them to say other parts of the country who say we're interested in doing something similar here, they come and become part of our family. So then there's a legal relationship. There's that sense that the group will offer to legally support, legally protect these new fledgling enterprises because they're part of that family in a legal way, rather than just, well, you've had a case study visit and we've shared some notes while you're on your own health.
franchise, kind of.
Yeah, it's a loose model, yeah.
Yeah.
So social franchise, so most people don't experience franchising is Costa Coffee, McDonald's, Subway. Social franchising can be a lot broader than that. It's working out. But yeah.
Not a profit for today, though.
No.
Come back. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
If you want to know more, put it on the feedback form. We'll try and do a future session.
When my Italian I have not
Yeah.
So the key is the code there, no? So every one of the under the regulation and everything. So for example, if I have this kind of different project that is more or less likely connected to each other, I can do like an umbrella for the same key, different.
Yeah. So each project, to each business model is registered, but a company, a charity, CIO, a culture society, another company, so, but they're all connected through this umbrella company at the top. They can all do their own thing. They are all legally people, separate in their own ways, but the holding company says, we will be your guardians. We will give you that protection at the back. And so the example is, it's my grandmother.
Like Ashton together. Same thing. I would it have been useful? I'd say limited PLC and foundation and that. But one person could be the CEO of all three.
One person could be part of the things, yeah.
If you've got enough hours in a day.
Yeah.
Grey hairs to lose, yeah.
But this thing starts to come back to this idea about, diverse. George was talking about pivoting and diversifying what you do, different customer groups, different services. How far do you want them to all sit within the same thing? And how far do you think actually it's better if they're kept separate to each other?
And the other sort of caveat on this is, if you're new to doing this job, in my mind, you need to worry too hard about what your legal structure is going to be. You've got to get your pilots sorted out. You've got to run what are my products and services, my activities going to be. These things might one day run and deliver consistently. So that's, for me, is like, what are you doing is the first bit, and the governance and the legal structure can sort of take care of itself or get support to figure out. I'll just give a couple of examples, and then we'll maybe have a quick chat around governance.
Yeah.
And that might be the next session we'll go on to the workshop. So, I work with large, big conglomerations. So when I've got examples of the people that we work with and things have changed, it's usually from the point of view of, somebody's been working as a sole trader. They really are a not-for-profit organisation. That was their goal, that was their purpose, and they've got all these great social outcomes that they could be achieving, but their current business model is not able to deliver quick enough. So if they formed as a bona fide social enterprise, company limited by guarantee, whether it's a kick or otherwise, they'd be able to apply for funding to grow quicker or to deliver the social good more quickly. So I've definitely had lots of people who started as a sole trader because that's all they could be, and then thinking around, actually, my vision, my scale, my impact would be so much more if I turned into the not-for-profit organisation I'm actually trying to be. And so we can help get there a little bit quicker in that way than they could working on their own as that sole trader. The challenge you get, which kind of takes into governance, is when you're working on your own or you're not used to thinking about yourself as a company, or a series of people managing a project or an organisation or company, it's finding the right people you can trust to form that entity with. And so that's why sometimes with somebody who might start as a sole trader or start as a one-man or woman band, helping them to think, well, who do they need on their board, or who do they need in their group to grow this thing in the future. And so that's what I'm saying, quite often looking at how they'll find people who they can trust, they'll find people who've got certain complementary skills, they'll find people who've got perhaps reach into new networks or to influence. And it really varies. Sometimes they'll just grab the first two mates and, sort of neighbours around the corner and get started. And, there's nothing wrong with that. But you do need to review that within 6 to 12 months, and you'll soon realise, you know, do I or don't I need hands on deck? Do I don't need specialist skills? So these things, you know, have a way of working themselves out, so that you do have to find the right people as you evolve. The other example I'm going to give is people who get rushed into setting up as a charity, or think they need to be a charity when they don't. And so I've had people, yeah, who they thought, brilliant, yes, I want to be a charity. You know, usually if you want it to be a charity, it's because there's clear charitable aims that cover what you're doing, and there's often those anyway. You know, they're similar, although they're kind of distinct within charities, and that people think that they want to open the floodgates to all of this funding, you know, if they're a charity. Well, there's plenty of funds that you can go for social enterprises, depending on whether or not your community can afford to pay for what you're doing, or certain services and activities that can be charged to different audiences. You may or may, you know, charities end up being fairly funding reliant, depending on what to do, and who they partner with permission. So there's a double-edged sword on that. And so yes, I've certainly come across people who thought they need to be a charity, have tried to go down routes doing that. And maybe the Charities Commission looks at them and sees what they are, and they throw them out. And certainly the Charities Commission have got stricter, I would say, in the last few years in terms of who they will sign up to be a charity. So that's something to bear in mind. The other thing, we were having this conversation with a lady this morning, is people don't realise that charity trustees can't be paid. So if you've been planning to be paid to run what it is you're going to do, then the charity model is probably not for you. It might be. So we were having a conversation this morning. KIC directors can be paid, and that's given, that's normal, and that's usual. In charities, whilst charity trustees can get certain out-of-pocket expenses and a certain percentages on what you can get as a charity trustee, as a CIO, you can't be paid to be the manager of what you're running. It's just not what that governance model is set up for. So if you've been running in that way, and we were having that chat this morning, weren't we, that you would step down, you know, you would need to step down off the board to become a staff member and have your chair and your trustees, you know, run what you run. So I'm only mentioning this for those people who are either charities or thinking of being charities, just that the thing that people don't always realise is if you were intending to earn a living and make a difference, a charity structure may or may not be for you, depending on who your audience is, whether or not they can pay for it, whether or not you've got a case to apply for consistent regular funding for what you do.
Is a CIO a charity?
Yes, charitable incorporated
I was going to ask that into the session, because but that raises a really important point, though, in the case about relationship, about money, because once you register something, be it a KIC, a charity, society, whatever it is, this thing is a separate personal law to you. Okay, so legally, it's a person. So as a sole trader, you are the business is you. Once you register something, that thing is a person. That thing is the enterprise, not you. Okay? So one of the things I would say to people when you go into the process, as well as thinking about the payment side, is think about what relationship do you want to have with it? What relationship should it have with you into the future? So about the idea about being paid, about control, about football clubs, do you want a golden share? Something we hear the story about. What happens 50 years from now? You know, what do you want the legacy of it to be?
Well, that's it. I thought I could say, I need to explain.
Because it's all of it then that you build goes into that thing. And that's separate to you. So there's something about your identity and its identity that you have to manage as well.
One of the if things go wrong, is it not the company's assets that are controlled or
That's what's got a company limited by guarantee, which says it limits your personal risk. Okay, so a company, when you incorporate something, you register a company. It's called a company limited by guarantee or a company limited by shares. The process presets a fixed amount of money that limits your risk too. So if it all goes wrong, you will never have to pay out more than £1.
Unless you're a accountant.
Okay. If you've been really stupid or you offered a personal guarantee, then yeah, you stop.
a person
in its own right.
Yeah, in its own right. If things go wrong, is it that person then the company that has to cover itself?
Yeah, yeah, and if you can't pay the debts, the people normally just write it off.
Is that when it's resolved?
Yeah.
Unless unless there's some reason to go after the directors for some reason, they'd be fraudulent.
But charity commission is not like that.
And
Yeah.
there was a very big case a few years ago about a charity that acted outside of its powers. So your powers, so when you register something, okay, you have a government articles, constitution, rules, okay, and it says in there what you have the power to do. This thing has the power to do these things.
Okay.
If you do something that's not in that list, then you're personally at risk.
Wow.
Now, so there was a case a few years ago by a very high-profile charity. Yeah.
Yeah, so the trustees or the directors are almost, enter into contract with this sort of thing. They govern it. They seek to be responsible for its aims, its objects, its activities, its powers, and what goes on. And so any trustees or directors of an after company should be making sure that it's not delivering things outside its remit, particularly if it's a charity.
Yeah. So this charity sued an American company because it said it was going to be demeaning the image, the memory of a certain person that it was set up to protect. And it went to court, and the judge said, as a charity, you have no powers to protect this person's memory or image or legacy. Just your powers are to dish out a pot of money, that's it.
Yeah.
So you have no grounds to bring this charge, get it kicked out. Yeah.
So what you write in your constitution is really
That's your, yeah. Now, this is where it's interesting because they tried to sue an American firm, like all good American firms, someone sues you, you can't just, just how it works. So then the court said, okay, the American firm has counted the charity for defamation because they haven't even seen what we were going to do. How could they know it's going to be a bad taste? And the judge said, because the charity did not have the powers to sue you, to bring this charge, then the trustees are personally liable for whatever comes out next. Interestingly, what happened next? That's what we know. That's on the public record.
Don't scare them too hard on a private.
What happened next? What happened next is terrible, because then it looks like deals were done. So trustees did deals with the American company to kind of smooth it out. Because these are the laws. Now, and this is the difficulty about legal structures. The rules, as I go through this in summary in a little bit.
Or a trustee, your roles and responsibilities, they're very clear, and will you sign up to that? Too many people set up companies without understanding what the roles and responsibilities of trustees are. We spend a lot of time during going around delivering little workshops to governing groups to kind of remind them what their roles and responsibilities are, so they fully aware.
And
it's very, you have to be very, very careful when you do, like me, for example, itself, when I opened my first limited company, to understand, to know things, to research and everything, because the accountant that opened it for me said, don't worry, because whatever happens, if the company is not you. Whatever happens, also if you do something wrong, will be,
but you are
the company, not you. Different.
You're responsible for the running, the governance, and the financial management.
Yeah. Issue there is a person who is doing. I had a £2,000 back.
And this is why these conversations are important to clarify what the rules are. And you can then make a better informed choice. And you may say, I don't like those rules. In which case, don't become that thing. But that may mean you miss out, but that's the trade-off. It's your choice to make because you've informed yourself, you've educated yourself. Accountancy, I have cleaned up after so many accountants. I had mergers fall apart because of bad accountants. I have had KICs and culture societies had to wind up and do deals with funders to not be sued because of bad accountants. It's just
They don't. A lot.
some are
of
okay.
don't.
Some accountants are nice.
We know a few. So
Which is Emma, you know, yeah, you're good. Just in case you watch.
Conscious of time, I know we're going to have a little sort of overview and walk through some of this stuff just in a bit more detail now we've warmed up to it. But has anybody got any sort of burning, obviously we've been thrown in a long way, has anybody else got any key questions at this point? Yeah.
No, but I'm really interested in what you think about a structure of instituted groups where you might suppose who's a sole trader, there's a group of people as a sole trader, who's say sole trader is part of the constituency group, but they act as a
Perfect question.
yeah, they act
Delivering.
as a sessional.
I'm all for it.
If that's what you think about what the constitutions are.
Yeah.
If you set up as a structure, like how far can you get with that? Obviously, with CIC, you can be with staff, so you can like bigger pots for staff fundings.
Interesting to hear sort of Adrian's take on this.
How far can you get in that universe?
I think, yeah, reasonably far. It depends what you want to do. And most people setting up these sorts of things, you know, if somebody's jumping on a bandwagon to find a load of funding to hoover up to feather their own nest, you know, they will get caught out fairly quickly. And funders aren't stupid. But I work on this method quite a bit. So I often will support people to say, set up a constituted group, test your thinking, test your idea. In my head, and certain funders like GMCDO and other funders don't like it when people on the constitution are paid sessional workers to deliver the work. The way I get around this and view this is, and Adrian might have different thoughts, is if it's written into your constitution that management committee members can be appointed to deliver ad hoc sessional work to written into your constitution, and the funder will either take it or leave it. And certainly in my world, far too many people volunteer their socks off. Yeah. The whole world, not getting paid to deliver this community work, and it's not right because funders don't allow that in some cases. So the lottery and other commissioners and other people don't have an issue with it, to my knowledge, and I know that because our community, one of my own incorporated association, Community Pop-Ups, runs these pop-up spas and retreats, and it's got a management committee, 3 people on the management committee. We apply for bits of funding from time to time to run training programs, to run health and wellbeing events. We have small contracts from councils, or the housing associations, or whoever. People pay direct for their, taster treatments or whatever it might be. I've been paid as a sessional worker in that. Most of the people who do work for us are therapists. I tend to get paid for doing research and impact work for it, or the laundry, with driving furniture and props around. But if I did it all the time in kind, I'd be on my back. Do you know what I mean? And as a single parent, it's like I can't not charge for my petrol or my time. Do you know what I mean? So that's my take. I don't know whether you know it. Yeah.
So if I search for you, for example, you are commissioned from your founding to do some project for people, no? And you got this money, so you do the project, but in a way or in another, you kind of feel, because some people is new on the country, foreign, or things like that, you joke them a bit.
I do, sorry.
You joke. You kind of play, deceive them.
Are you saying you think I deceive people?
No, you are.
It's all hypothetical. We're not talking about real cases.
And in the end, the part that, the achievement of the project was that she had to work with these people to open a pop-up spa, pop-up restaurant, and things like that. In the end, she clicked the treasurer, that was me of course at that time,
Okay.
practically to let me sign things like the annual reader, whatever, like 2 years I was in. Practically the people of this group, only one person benefit that is still working with there and opened a restaurant and things like that. And the other 4, we didn't have nothing from the course. Is that right?
Of course it's not.
I mean, that case, what someone can do. I mean, you can sue them. What you?
If it was a funder, so if the whole activity was funded or commissioned, go to the funding.
Whistle blow to the funder, yeah.
Yeah, the founder is the lottery.
So you go to
Yeah.
lodge.
Yeah, but it's
Well, but at the time, if somebody thought that I was swindling people, this, that, and the other, they could go to whoever, the council or the lottery or whoever, and say, "Did you know Cambridge was doing this, that, something else?" And they'd be obliged to look into it. What I would say is, and I make sure that I have separate accounts for everything, and I have independent accounts for everything, because you know, even if somebody thought these things got the wrong end of the stick, or I was pulling the wool over somebody's eyes. You know, if I've got an accountant showing exactly what's coming in and gone out, you can see exactly how little I'm paying myself out of this company, then, you know, you've got to be super transparent and super accountable for these things. And I don't know what, just quickly to get to
Yeah,
what's your take
so
on
the
it?
question about-
It is about ethics.
I've set something up. And so very often social entrepreneurs will incorporate something, set something up, and then they will be a subcontractor to a sessional work.
Yeah.
Because setting up a payroll is really expensive. Okay, employer NI, pension contributions, really expensive. And when you're small and starting out, you can't guarantee this. So you do it as a temporary fix. Okay? The only other dimension I'd add that Nickala's kind of put out there is something called IR35.
Yeah.
Inland Revenue Rule number 35. Okay. IR, Inland Revenue 35. And this is a rule that Inland Revenue brought in a few years ago to stop big construction companies avoiding paying the taxes they were supposed to. So IR35 says, are you actually an employee or are you a proper sessional? And there's a test that you can do on the HMRC website. You can do it anonymously, you don't have to give any details. And it just says, yes, you are on the right side of this rule. You are a legitimate sessional worker at the moment.
Do they need to write invoices?
Yes, if you're doing a sessional bit, you have, like Nickala said, you need to do an audit. There has to be transparency in a paper trail that shows this is how it's all
And you
been
have
done.
to show that you're working for multiple companies, you know, so as an associate, as a freelance entrepreneur, if you're just working for one organisation, good chance that technically they'd say, actually, you should be an employee here. But if somebody's doing sessional work for the company A, B, and C, even if it's only 2 or 3 companies, they're not technically an employee or potentially an employee of any one of those. So there's rules.
And there's one more dimension as well, which is if you are setting up and doing it, and you are still employed by someone else at the same time, just check with your current employer. Okay, because I've worked with some social entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs over the years, because under employment law, the default position is usually anything you do, any ideas you have. If I was to, like Thomas' example, is employed by Macc. Under the default position of employment law says any ideas Thomas has while he's Macc's employee belong to Macc. So if he develops it and spins it out, Macc could say, no, Thomas, that belongs to us. We'll have that. Okay, and we'll sue you back for it. So just so before you start getting too deep into it, just have a hypothetical, in principle, what if conversation with your employer, just to make sure everything's going to be okay.
So if your sessional workers have to write invoices, does that mean that you have to do P45?
No.
No.
So you're paying them like they come.
Oh,
They're just a supplier.
oh,
Not
okay.
just a
Yeah, I did that form.
Okay.
Literally, it's so different.
It
It comes out, it came out wrong every time because I knew I was.
Yeah.
And I was like, what am I answering wrong here? So I would also say, if you do that form.
Take with a
It's
large.
like, go into the,
But again, talk to other people, take other views, listen to other people's experiences.
So you were going to say
If we talk about group companies, even if you don't officially connect your companies, as far as HMRC are concerned, if you're a director of my business, they're all connected anyway.
Anyway, yeah.
So you should just an FYI to anyone who's looking to do that.
Could you expand?
So if you're the director of 5 different companies, they could not legally be related to one another, but you as a director would connect them. So as far as HMRC is concerned, they're all financially connected businesses.
Yeah. So if one has outstanding debts, the others can become liable.
But what you can do then is you could lend money between your groups and you could kind of reduce tax burden if you want to.
It all sounds like a weird kind of three-card trick to find the length. And it looks like that in practice, but it's not. Okay, it's just, again, there's these rules, it's important to know that they exist. The idea of this session like today is to give you an overview, a kind of what are the main chunks, how does this kind of break down, what do I need to know to start with, where can I go to find out more, what do I need to know next time to ask these questions.
So HMRC helplines are quite good. If
Yeah.
you're struggling to catch up, just call them up and they will actually, they won't advise, but they will guide.
Yeah.
There's a distinction, but they are quite helpful.
Yeah.
I have a lot of hypothetical conversations with HMRC. I ring up and go, hypothetically, what would happen in this instance? And they're great. And they say, well, hypothetically, we need to put it into some kind of real world example. Obviously, you're not going to tell me the name of the company that it is. Obviously, I wouldn't. But, let's say, I don't know, this one. And I go, well, if it was that one, then this can play out. Okay, that's fine. So if it was that one, not that it is, obviously, but thank you very much. Right, guys.
Yeah.
Um,
And likewise, the same goes for the kit regulator for the charity commission. They are there, they have got people on hand, although they're not necessarily massive teams. They're there with good questions. And likewise, we're going to roll on with some more good questions. So I'm going to pause our little recording here, hope the panel's being of use. And we're